Hey, hey, hello everybody. Wakey, wakey, eggs and bakey. Here we are, starting our fifth week, I think it is, or something like that since quarantine. Some of us have already passed the fifth week. So, anyway, uh, welcome back to it. I think this is going to be probably our last um, full week. Well, maybe we've got one more week. We're going to have some work that we've got to get done next week on this YouTube thing, but we're winding down. We're here down to the last couple of weeks, and we'll get finished up, and you can go about your business, whatever that might be. So, um, just a couple of little housekeeping things to mention. Uh, the provost, if you've not seen an email from the provost, they have made the pass fail option uh, available. I don't know if anybody in this class is going to qualify for it or not, uh, but make sure that you're aware of that if you're going to go through the pass fail qualification thing and make an application for that. We'll check in with at the UNR website and make sure that you know what to do and when to do it and so on. So, okay, looks like we're sounding good this morning. We're going to try something a little different today, and we're gonna depend on live chat a little bit more this morning. Um, it's a little bit of an experiment. I was on a Zoom meeting the other day with about 20 people and trying to have a discussion, and it was a mess. Um, so there's just you can't replace an in-person encounter and back and forth communication situation with if you've got a Zoom session with a half a dozen people, it works pretty well. But you start getting more than that, and it gets problematic. People start talking over the top of each other, and people mute, and then they don't mute, and it just didn't work very well. So we're going to try this through live chat and see how well it works, and we'll figure out how to muddle our way through this professionalism. That's the best word I can come up with for it right now is this professionalism exercise. And so we're going to chat about that a little bit this morning, about the video, the Yes Awaken video. We're going to use that as a focal point of our discussion. And then you're going to take down some notes, and then you're going to go back and you're going to look at it again. Hopefully you've seen it at least once. Somebody on the live chat tell me that you've seen it, so I'll know at least one person has looked at it over the weekend. And you will go back and you'll look at it again after you've sort of taken notes and thought about what we're talking about this morning. And then you will give me that write-up, and the assignment has been sent out for the write-up. I believe it's 350 words maximum. There's going to be some question about what should I put on it. There's not going to be any one right answer for it. It's going to be one of those things that I want you to do some creative thinking about. And when I look at it, I can tell whether you're just trying to blow it off or whether you've actually sat down and thought about it a little bit as you try to organize your thoughts into this idea of what professionalism is and what it takes in order to act professionally, in order to create a professional product, all those kinds of things. So that's what we want to kind of do today, is talk about that some. How are your interviews progressing? I'm getting some feedback from some of the interviewees once again, and I'm getting some good vibes from them. So the bar is pretty doggone high. So if you haven't done that yet, make sure you get that done, because it's going to get away from you if you don't. And that's again, that's part of this whole professionalism concept that we have. So be sure you get your interviews up and running. Okay, I sent the exam out earlier this morning. If you haven't checked your email yet, be sure you check your email. Uh, Exam number 2, it's a take. The instructions are all with the email, but just to reiterate, it's a take-home exam. It's a take-home exam. It's multiple guess. You've got an answer sheet. Use the answer sheet. Type your answers in. Save it as a Word file or as a PDF file. Either one I can take. Do not, and I repeat, do not send me. I'll repeat it again. Do not send me a JPEG file you took with your phone. Okay? I can't use it. So don't do that. Don't send me a copy of it that's embedded into an email. Send it either as a PDF file or a Word file, one or the other. Figure it out how to go about doing that. So those will be due, I think it's this Friday, right? Close of business on the 23rd, I think is the date. It's on the email when I want those things. And so there's going to be no exceptions with it. If you get it in late to me, unless you've got a doggone good excuse, you're not going to get a grade for it. Well, you'll get a grade for it, but it'll be a 0. So I can't wait around for a week for those things to trickle in. So, because I got to get them graded, and we're going to be running up against getting grades in here pretty quick. So, so I think that's all the housekeeping stuff that I want to talk about this morning. If something else comes up into my brain, we'll try and answer it. But nevertheless, okay. Let's talk about this Yes Awaken video thing. I think it's an appropriate name for the assignment, Awaken, because we're trying to awaken you to this concept of professionalism. And so, professionalism begins with exercises like turning in homework or turning in other different kinds of assignments. If you're late doing it, or you don't do it, or you do it with a lousy quality, that reflects back on your personal professionalism. It doesn't mean anything to me, but it should reflect back and cause you to reflect on your own personal professional behavior. What kind of product are you creating? What kind of product are you handing out? Is it the best that it can be at the moment? You can always edit things later and say, I wish I should have done this, or I should have done that. But what is the quality of it? Is something that you should always assess yourself with. Have high expectations of yourself. And so this Awaken, I don't know, it may sound kind of cornballish, but hopefully you have awakened at least to some degree about professionalism during this class. And you remember early on in the semester, we saw a video of some modern art. You might recall that. And the professor had his students, do a critique on a piece of art that turned out to be his paint apron, a piece of modern art that turned out to be a photo of his paint apron, where he wiped his hands and his brushes and palette knives and so on and so forth. And so we talked about this concept of professional standards. We used figure skating as an example. People train all of their lives and spend literally, in some cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars to train to get to a point where they can they can perform these maneuvers on the ice in a professional and be measured against a professional standard, even though it may be a subjective standard. It's still a professional standard. And so you can imagine someone just, coming out on the ice and throwing themselves down and rolling around and turning just wallowing around on the ice and expect that type of a performance to meet up with any kind of professional standards that have been developed for figure skating is just ludicrous. And we can all agree on that. And so that's what we want. Hopefully that by the end of the semester, not just in this class, but other classes and in your work and so on and so forth, you understand professionalism a little bit better. And you can understand that there are performance standards. And if you don't meet those performance standards, there's going to be consequences for that in real life. And if you have high expectations for yourself to begin with that are higher than the professional standards or professional expectations, then you're probably going to be all right. If your personal professional standards aren't very good, then you're going to have trouble in the professional world. So that's sort of this whole course is kind of an exercise in professionalism and how you conduct yourself and how you create a product in the end that's an appropriate product. So I hope that all that makes a little bit of sense now, or makes more sense now than it did at the beginning of the semester. But that's what we want to do. We're going to look at this. We're going to talk a little bit about this video. And so my first question to you, and I want to see some words on the live chat, because everybody else is going to benefit from your words that you've come up with. So I want you to just type in some, one or two words. What has to be in place? Answer this question. What has to be in place? What has to exist? What has to have been done? What has to be in place to pull off a performance like this? What kinds of things have to be in place to pull off a performance like this one that you saw? So shoot me some live chat stuff here so we can talk about it. Like I say, hopefully that a number of you have watched this at least once or twice. 2 or 3 times would be good. So, all right, here we go. We got a few. Keep them coming. We're going to talk about them. I got 23 of you on here, so we got to have some more stuff here. Now they're starting to pop up. Keep them coming. We get a good list of them here. We'll start talking about some of these things. The first one here, pre-planning. You bet, pre-planning of all kinds of pre-planning. What kind of pre-planning? Think about that for a moment, and we'll come back to it. Practice. Geez Louise, practice. Even as a professional, you practice. When I go to, for instance, I have no idea how many public speaking engagements I've enjoined over the last 30 years, 40 years, almost 50 years of my professional life. And I still rehearse. And I rehearse over and over and over again. When I write something for publishing in a magazine, for instance, I have a magazine column I've written for about 10 years. I may edit that thing a dozen times, and it's an 800-word column. I may edit it a dozen times. may absolutely do that. So practice, 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 practice. You just cannot, you can't get enough practice. Dedication, that's part of the practice. Again, dedicate, yes, you're not, if you're not dedicated to it, you're not going to practice. Dedication, mastery of instruments, back to the practice thing, mastery. And there's a difference between being a technical master and being, and to feel that mastery. Okay. A lot of people are technical musicians. A lot of people are technically good writers, but that doesn't mean that they're great writers. You have to have the feel for it as well. Repetition, practice, you bet, practice. How many times had this band played this particular opus with this particular arrangement? You know, somebody has to arrange that piece, right? So you've got you've got all this you've got all this mechanical stuff, okay, which is practice, dedication, mastery of instruments, repetition. It's mechanical, it's logistical. Somebody had to figure out what amplifiers and how to wire that stage for that particular bit of sound. The roadies had to put the instruments and the audio equipment up in the appropriate places for the sound in that particular room. Coordination, absolutely coordination, and that comes in with this working well with others. There's going to be people you're going to run into in life that you just really can't work with. But there's going to be a lot of people that you can work with, even though maybe you don't think about everything the same way, or you're not from the same background, and so on and so forth. What else have we got here? Determination, absolutely determination. And that determination is to be the best that they can be, to put on the best performance that night of that particular opus that they have ever done. And what I want you to notice, this is a big one, because this is sort of center this dedication to perfection, this passion, I guess we can call it, it all centers around, this whole thing centers around you, with respect to this assignment. Professionally, your dedication or your passion should be to search for that moment when you are the best that you can be at that particular task. It's an endless search for that moment that you are the best you can be at that particular task that you're doing at that moment. And so what you'll notice, take notice of this at about 16 minutes and 25 seconds into the performance. Okay. Hopefully you wrote that down, because you're going to go back and look at it. At that moment, right around 16:25, you'll notice John Anderson is the lead singer for Yes. Notice the look on his face. At that moment, he knows that performance that night is good, that they are in the zone. Now you can imagine if one person, we got some stuff on here about teammates, trust your other people, working together efficiently. And one reason I use this particular band, and can you imagine, when I was in high school, we drove around and listened to this stuff on the radio. It was top 40 stuff. So, uh, and, and even up into the 80s. So, notice how intricate this opus is. I mean, the arrangements, the coordination of keyboard playing with string with the guitar, playing the same notes, or playing triads, or playing harmony notes with each other. And if one person in that group, one person is just a little bit off in tuning, or timbre, or timing, just a little bit off, because it is so intricately balanced, what's gonna happen? You're just gonna know. Everybody in that room is gonna know that somebody's off that night, that they're not keeping up, right? They're just not. It's not right. And when you have so many points in an opus like this, in a performance like this, where something can go wrong in each one of those movements, you have to be on top of it. You have to be right there in the moment with each other. Okay? And hopefully that's making sense to you. All right? And so what this band is doing, is they are searching for that moment of perfection. They may never get it, and these guys are good, right? They're going to get pretty close every night. But believe me, if you have ever performed, it doesn't make any difference if that performance is with music, or if you've done public speaking, anything like that that's out in the public, where you're providing some kind of a performance, whatever it might be, even if it's a reading of some kind. When it's over, you can always find where you could do something better. But there are those moments when you approach that perfection. And that's what you're after when it comes to professionalism, is approaching that moment, trying to get to that, as close to that moment of perfection as you can get. Now, this stuff's not written in, maybe there's some books out there written about this stuff. This is just 50 years of hard knocks coming from me. But go back and look at that moment, that 16-minute, 25 seconds. It's right around in there somewhere. You'll notice that he knows on that night that it's all working, and it's going to work the rest of the night. And it's just very obvious that he is in the zone. He knows they are all in the zone together, and they're making things happen the way that they want it to happen. Composition. Yes, I want to talk about composition a little bit. Just take this particular opus here of Awaken. How many hours did it take to, first of all, they had to compose what? They had to compose some lyrics, okay? And you'll notice there are different sets of lyrics, different sets. There's different timing and rhythm with the lyrics. So the lyrics had to be written. Then a score had to be written for each, a basic score, a basic melody had to be written for those lyrics. And then you had to have a score that underscores, the melodies. And then you've got the different instruments that have to be arranged in a certain pattern. How long did that take? to construct something like that so that you can eventually hear it the way they intend for it to be played. Now, keep in mind in the communication process, and Evelyn Glennie talks about this extensively too in the video that you saw from her. When I try to communicate something to you, what you hear, if there's 30 of you in the room, there may be 20 different things that at least 20 different people that heard something different. And so the communication process is problematic to begin with. And so what you want to do is you want to, as a performer, as a professional, is you want to put forth behavior and you want to put forth a product. Say it this way, you want to put forth a product that is indicative of your behavior, of your professional behavior. And some people may like this part more than others, and some people may like that part more than others, and some people may not like it at all, but they can look at it, and you may not like this piece, but you can look at it and you can tell the work and the dedication and the passion, the confidence, the motivation, and all those things that you've written over here with live chat that went into it. You can tell that professional behavior. And so that's what you're after. The product is great, but it's the professional behavior that's the challenge. That's what you want to aspire to. And eventually, if in your professional, if you conduct yourself in a professional way in whatever profession you're in, eventually that behavior will be rewarded with some kind of success, whatever that may be. Let me give you a couple of words that I have written down here. Because there's a lot going on that you don't see in this video, right? There's a lot of people involved that you don't see that have come together to help make this product what it was on that particular evening. And this is one of the better performances of this particular piece. It's different. A performance is different every night, and especially one that is so intricately balanced like this. But this is a good one. This is a good one. And once again, John Anderson realizes that, and he's there in that moment at about 16 minutes, 25 seconds. We talked a little bit about mechanical and logistical, but somebody had to get on the phone and say, I got this band, yes, and they're coming through. We want to put on a show in your town, right? So somebody had to get on the phone and do that. There's a lot of just mechanical, logistical stuff. Somebody had to load all their equipment up and unload it and set it up and make sure that it's all wired up right and running correctly, operating correctly. Backups have to be in place. Somebody had to sell tickets, right? So somebody had to order some tickets. They had to make an app to put on people's phones so that they could sell tickets or paper tickets if you go that route for something like this. This was probably still paper tickets. I think this one's from the early 2000s. But somebody had to do all of those kinds of things. Somebody had to set up the lighting. How are you going to light that stage? How are you going to decorate the stage? How are you going to organize it? Somebody had to sit down and draw up a plan for that kind of stuff. Somebody had to get them there. Somebody had to organize the planes or the automobiles and the hotels and so on. So the people, those are people's jobs, and they do those things. Usually, they do them quite professionally, or they don't get chosen to do it again. So there's lots of mechanical and just logistical stuff going on that has to be in place to pull something like this off. The artistic side of things, once again, we talked about that a little bit earlier. Somebody's got to write it. Somebody's got to write the score, and then somebody's got to arrange it and say, well, who's going to play what here? What should we play here? Does this make sense? Is this going to communicate what we want to communicate? If we do a piano solo here, or if we start with a guitar solo, or if we start with piano, or we start with drum, or what? Somebody has to make those decisions, and that's part of the flow. You make those kinds of decisions when you're writing something. Flow makes a difference. The way something reads, the sentences have to be constructed in a way that they tell a story that conveys the information that you want the story to convey. So there's flow, and that's something that you just almost can't teach. You just have to sort of learn it, I think, in some ways. Maybe there is something somewhere that can teach you those kinds of things, but I'm not aware of it. Coordination. Gee, somebody put coordination on here a while ago, I think I saw. For crying out loud, that is coordinated. This whole effort is coordinated. And then, logistically, somebody had to record it, right? Somebody's up in the booth recording this thing. And they're inputting the right amount of volume and mix for each of the instruments and microphones. And so somebody's up there doing that. Musicianship, obviously, these guys are just, for crying out loud. Steve Howe. You can tell when somebody is a great guitarist is when nobody can play their stuff. Nobody else can do it. Nobody else does it. That's when you know somebody is really, really, really good in terms of musicianship. Rick Wakeman, oh my goodness gracious, the keyboard player. Tales and Poems of Edgar Allan Poe. Look that one up that he put out a while back. We talked about management. Man, somebody's got to manage this whole thing. Somebody's got to put the whole bloody thing together and be the manager of it. And you can imagine that there are good managers and that there are lousy managers, because this is a lot to keep up with. So, what else has come to mind while we've been talking about this? What else has crossed your mind about this piece? Go ahead and stick it on the live chat. Hopefully you're writing down a few of these words in the live chat this morning, because they're going to help you when you start writing this thing up. So what have we caused you to think about that you have not thought about before with respect to this particular performance? Give us something here. Somebody type something in there, and we'll revisit it for a little bit, and then we will call it a day here in a little while. Years of composition practice. Oh my goodness gracious, yes. Trust your teammate. Focused. Focused. How do you stay focused when you're up in front of somebody trying to reach perfection in front of someone? That's pretty nerve-wracking. When you're trying to reach perfection in front of a bunch of people, it's hard enough to do it when you're out back somewhere. But trying to do it in front of a bunch of people, problematic. Nobody has any more thoughts on this? Some secondary thoughts? Okay. So this is what you're going to try to do. You're going to try and use some of this discussion here this morning to try and put together that 300 some odd words. All right, we got a bunch of them starting to roll through now. You're going to try and use some of these things that other students have given you this morning to construct this assignment, and you're going to relate it to yourself, to your personal aspirations. And so, you're chasing that moment of perfection when you are the best that you can be, not the best that somebody else can be or compared to somebody else, but the best that you can be at that particular moment. Let's look at some of these things here. The complexity of arrangements seem like a statement first and an atmospheric experience second. Yeah, that's generally the point of it. It's a statement, and that becomes an atmospheric thing, so that you may not know what you just saw, but you saw something. Interesting comment. Have to work through performance anxiety. Yeah. And the only way to do that is practice doing that, getting through that performance anxiety. Believe me, public speaking, and I do a lot of it, it is not a natural act. People don't wake up one day and go, hey, I can do that. There may be people that are better at it than others, but it's persistence and craft that will get you where you need to go. And whether or not you have all the attributes or not, persistence and craft will get you a long way and get you through that performance anxiety. Almost all performers, and I think all of them will tell you up front that it doesn't make any difference. They still have performance anxiety. You just learn to live with it. Cameraman knew what shots to get and put together in a video. Hey, that's one we hadn't talked about. Just making the video. What camera shots are appropriate? When do you cut to one musician versus another? And what do you, in the old 60s, you see those old videos in the 60s, you see people's faces. They're playing like crazy, and you see their faces. I don't want to see their faces. I want to see their fingers on a fretboard. But things have changed. And now we do that. We've gotten better at it. Cameramen know what and when to take shots of. And then somebody has to edit all of that. They just take a lot of footage, and then the editor sits down and puts it all together, pieces it together so that it makes some sense. Structure of the performance to make sure an audience is entertained the whole time. Absolutely. There's slow and there's fast. There's up and there's down. You bring the house up. You bring the house down. That is an artistic endeavor, and some people are very good at it. Some people aren't that good at it. But yes, you have to maintain the audience's attention, especially if you're going to put on a 3-hour show like this. What else we got here? Are we supposed to write about what needs to be included in professional activities or relate this to ourselves? Both. There's no one right answer for this. I really want it to be what is this thing, what is this video and these discussions told you? What impression have they made on you and your professional activity? What have you learned from it? So there's no one right answer. I just want to see some professional quality, knowing, understanding that you put some time and some creative thought into it. So it's, that may seem vague to a lot of the choleric temperaments out there, but sometimes vague is good. I want to know what you think about it and how you can apply some of these things to your professional activities and your professional behavior in the future. You're like, for instance, if you don't turn in a homework assignment, what kind of professional behavior is that? It doesn't bother me, but if you should have higher, I think one should have high, let me put it this way. I think one should have high expectations of themselves. So, what else we got here? The color of the lights changed to reflect the mood. Oh yeah, now we're going back to the structure of the performance, and this idea of taking the audience on a ride up and down, around, and making it an enjoyable experience for them. So, okay. You guys want to talk some more? If you do, put it on there. I'll give it another minute here, but and I can try and explain the assignment a little bit better. I just want something from you that tells me you took away something from this particular performance that you can use, however it improved your understanding, however it broadened your understanding. What do you know now that you didn't know about professional behavior and about chasing perfection? That's what I want to see, and I'll read them all. I'm not just going to look at them and click them over. I'll take a good look at them. So you're not just somebody's going to read it. It's going to be a performance of one and yourself, or an audience of one and yourself. But I look forward to these things. So anything else? Not seeing anything. You got any questions about anything else? Now's the time to do it. We got a couple minutes left. I'll try and answer whatever other questions you may have. Dead air, that's the bane of radio, right? Dead air. Left my harmonica at home this morning, or I could play you something like you're on hold. Is the test due Thursday or Friday? I thought the email said Thursday the 23rd, but I think you said Friday this morning. Email said Thursday the 23rd. What did I say? What did I say on the email this morning? I think it said Thursday the 23rd, close of business, right? That's what I have on my calendar that I'm looking here. Yeah, Thursday. Thursday, close of business. 23rd. Okay, cool. Hopefully that's clear. I got to have a little time to start grading them on Friday. So, yeah, I might have said Friday, but go with the email. The email is the official document. Last week was crazy around here, so I'm barely sane most days, and by Friday last week, I was well down the road. Okay, cool. Any other questions? The interview paper is due. Yes, on the 30th. Interview paper is due on the 30th. And, try and, if you haven't made your appointments yet, try and get them in, because these folks, if they run out of time, they're not going to be able to give you your interview. So make sure you get your appointments with them as quickly as possible, because they could run out of time and say, look, I just don't have time to do it between now and, and when you have to get it written up. So make sure you're on the ball with that. If they run out of time, you're going to be up a creek. So make sure that you get that done. Okay. Not seeing anything. I'll let you go for now. And remember, Wednesday, we're not gonna do this on Wednesday. You can call it your exam period, whatever. But we won't have a lecture at this regularly scheduled time on Wednesday this week. We'll be back on Friday um, of this week. Yes, we'll be back on Friday. We'll probably talk about some poisonous plants or something. So, okay. Do svidaniya. Bye bye. Paka paka. Email me if something comes to mind. Have a good week.